Hey everyone, thanks for watching the Commander's Brew here on YouTube. If you like the deck techs we're making here and all the stuff we make on the channel, go ahead and hit subscribe to help us out. Or if you really want to help out, go to Patreon at patreon.com/commandersbrew and help us brew these decks in our Discord, get early access to Battle of Brews episodes and a whole bunch more stuff. Go check it out, and yeah, we'll see you over there. But without further ado, let's get to today's big deck tech.
Ooh, this deck was a journey, but I'm settled on Grixis Brudiclad, quote unquote. Brudiclad, as we know, is, let's just read Brudiclad. Telcore Engineer, 4 red blue, legendary artifact creature, 4/4. Creature tokens you control have haste, that's cool. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you make a 2/1 blue mirror artifact creature token. Then choose any token you control. If you do, so this is a May ability, that's important, all of your tokens become the token that you chose. So Brudiclad is a very inspiring commander, right? We want to brew around it, but I always felt that Brudiclad being only red-blue, there were other things I wanted to do with it. I made a comment in passing when Eldraine was spoiled that, like, I wish there was a commander who kind of treated all the foods and clues and treasures equally, so you could take advantage of all these new tokeny artifacts that we have. And people rightly suggested Brudiclad does that. Like, if you have a food on the board, Brudiclad could be like, now they're all food, or make them all treasure. However, I did feel that, like, not having access to green meant we missed a ton of great clue enablers and a ton of great food enablers losing green. So I tried a Temur version, but that wasn't working out. The food support I didn't feel was there yet. So then I was like, well, what else do I guess do I go Grixis? So I thought, oh, okay, maybe like we'll do a Grixis with like a spell slinger kind of sub theme, so we can get a lot more tokens as we cast spells. And the reason I wanted to have a little bit of a spell slinger thing was because all I want to do is make multiple copies of Aetherflux Reservoir, have like 40 or 50 of them, and then cast like 2 spells and just 50 everybody at the table. So while this was
a fun plan, this is like an achievement unlock deck, kind of.
I think it is. I think it might be an achievement unlock deck. So for a while, Kess was the commander because I could cast an extra spell out of my graveyard and get an extra cast triggered that way. But here was why it's in quotes still. There was one unanswered question. How can we do a deck that wants tons and tons of tokens, like treasure tokens, and not run Smothering Tithe? Ooh. We need white in here. So that's what we did. It's Grixis splashing white, and our partner commanders are Silas Wren and Akiri Lineslinger. So I skipped. We'll come back to Aetherflux Reservoir, but Silas Wren is 1 blue-black, 2/2 Death Touch. Whenever Silas Wren deals combat damage, choose an artifact in your graveyard, and you can cast it this turn. So that lets us, get extra artifacts out of the graveyard. And Akiri Lineslinger, white-red, first strike vigilance, starts as a 0/3, but gets +1/+0 for each artifact you control. First strike vigilance often lives at like a 10/3 or 11/3. That's a very potent combination. We can safely attack into almost every board, and we still have Akiri untapped to block any ground creatures that try to come in. Very strong card in the deck, and the two work pretty well in combination. So that's what we're going with. It's a Grixis land base, but we do have ability to use treasures, and Command Tower, of course, Commander Sphere, those kinds of things do get us white mana.
Right, so the white mana, not super important outside of Smothering Tithe and maybe Akiri if you can get it. Is that right?
Sure. Great.
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
Good to know.
Oh, good. So, and then just to round up, since this is sort of an achievement unlocked, I'll go back to Aetherflux Reservoir. This is the 4-mana artifact. Every time you cast a spell, you gain a life for each spell you've cast. So if you can cast a lot of spells in a turn, you can gain a ton of life. And you can pay 50 life to deal 50 damage to a creature or player. Oh, no, they did change that to any target. So you also can hit a Planeswalker if you really wanted to.
Hit a target for 50.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like, if we can get like 12.5 Aetherflux Reservoirs, it doesn't take long before we can 50 the entire table. That's kind of what we want to do. So I think that covers the overall game plan. So let's go into some neat moves.
Working on a
neat
moves.
Okay, so first up, we're going to take advantage of some Silas Wren activation. I guess more of a trigger-ish than anything else. But of course, Silas Wren, when he hits, we get stuff back from our graveyard. So one great thing to do, we want to get back some stuff like Renegade Map, Commander Sphere, some of these types of things. Renegade Map is the one casting cost artifact, and it's tapped. Then you sack it, you search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put in your hand, shuffle your library. This is a cool one because, especially with Silas Wren, we're getting that back. We're getting lands to our hand. It's going to help us fix, help us hit our land drops. I love this one. Really good. Another one is like Golden Egg. The 2-mana one from Eldraine, a 2-mana artifact. When it enters, you draw a card. So I love it when you can like get these little loops going with small artifacts that enter and draw a card. You can pay 1 and sack it to add 1 mana of any color if you so desire, if you know that becomes a problem for you, or you can
another way to get white if we need to.
Exactly, or you can just treat it like treat it like food and pay 2 and gain 3 life. Also, so this is one you definitely want to be looping with Silas Wren, just casting this, drawing some extra cards. It's going to be real nice.
Yeah. And the beauty of these artifacts is they sack themselves. Mm-hmm. So, like, you don't have to work hard to get them in the graveyard. I do love that. And so I'd like to take a second and just talk about Silas Wren and Akiri Lineslinger as deterrents from attacking. Silas Wren has Death Touch. So people often aren't going to be able to attack in to you with Silas Wren. And if that wasn't enough, Akiri also has First Strike of Vigilance. The board on the ground is very snake bitey. What do you call it? Rattlesnakey.
Right.
So of course we're running Cranial Plating. Now that we have access to black, we can run Cranial Plating for 2 mana. It's an equipment where the equipped creature gets +1/+0 for each artifact you control. It's the Akiri ability of the power pump part, but on an artifact.
Wow, so it doubles.
It doubles. So Akiri wearing this is often a 1-hit kill. Like Akiri can often get to 21 commander damage range, and just was like, well, I hope you like have a blocker, because if you don't, like, it's over. Cranial Plating is one of those artifacts that equips for 1, but you can spend black to equip it at instant speed as an activated ability. Again, this is another great move where it's like, okay, I'll attack with Akiri. And it's like, I won't block it. It's like, well, then Cranial Plating's moving. Cranial Plating will move on to whoever you're not blocking if it doesn't result in an awful trade for me and just do a ton of damage out of nowhere. It's amazing.
There's no way they're not blocking Akiri if you have Cranial Plating out. They can
true.
see the instant speed, so they would know. Well, hopefully they would know.
It's true. And then so we're going to pair those up with a way to get more treasure tokens of Trove of Temptation. 3 and a red for the enchantment. Each opponent has to attack you or a planeswalker you control. Spoiler alert, we don't have any. With at least 1 creature each combat. If they have a flyer, they're going to be able to get over a lot of those. But if they don't, they have to come at your like 11/3 first striker on the ground. And we're going to get a treasure every end step just for having this around.
We don't have Uncommon Saheeli in this deck?
Uncommon Saheeli? Oh, no, we don't have Uncommon Saheeli. Listen, so this is...
She would have been good.
She would have been great, but like the token Spellslinger synergies, the Uncommon Saheeli would be good, but this deck is doing a lot of things. Like, I can't dedicate too many cards less to every part of it, right?
Yeah,
like,
no, for sure.
You got to have the instants and sorceries, or else you're not spellslinging.
Okay. This is where I want to. This is the part I'm most excited to talk about.
Yeah.
How are we going to copy our Aetherflux Reservoir? That's one thing I'm very interested in. So first we have Masterful Replication. Very cool card from M20. When I saw this card, I was like, ooh, there's going to be some decks that really abuse this card, right? And this is probably one of them. It's 5 and a blue for an instant that says you choose 1. You can create 2 3/3 colorless golem artifact creatures, which is great, but not what we're looking for. Here in this deck, we're looking to choose target artifact you control. Each other artifact you control becomes a copy of that artifact until end of turn. Oh,
right.
Man. Yeah, that's going to work just fine. All the food, all the clues, all the treasures are all going to become copies of Aetherflux Reservoir. It's ridiculous.
Well, and Silas Wren will become 1. Cranial Plating will become 1.
Right?
Like,
Each
Renegade
other.
Map and a Renegade Map will become 1. So this is one where we want to have a handful of like quick instant or sorcery draw spells, like 1 or 2 mana cantrippy stuff, and just chain a bunch of spells while we've got a dozen and a half Aetherworks Aetherflux Reservoirs up there. It doesn't take long to get to like 150 plus with that many out there.
Oh, man. We also have, speaking of Saheeli's Artistry is nice. For blue, for sorcery, you choose one or both. So you're most likely going to choose both. Create a token that's a copy of target artifact, and create a token that's a copy of target creature, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types. This is one where you get to steal the biggest and best creature on the board while also copying an Aetherflux Reservoir. And once you have Brudiclad out, once you have that token version of Aetherflux Reservoir, that's when you can start making all your your treasures and stuff copies of it.
And it is possible that you're just like, oh, your opponent has like a wicked tramply non-legendary. It's like, I'll just make all of my artifacts that.
Sure. Absolutely. And finally, this is a card that I like. It's funny talking about the organization. I came across this card in organizing part of my collection recently, and I was like, hey, for artifact decks, this is good. Echo Storm. Echo Storm's 3 blue for the sorcery. When you cast a spell, you copy it for each time you've cast your commander from the command zone this game. So am I right about this? Partner commanders get an automatic boost for these types of cards. Because you can still, because you've cast Silas Wren and Akiri, and they're low CMC.
Yeah.
So that's 2 casts, right?
Yeah, at least I've found, like, when I tested this, I found, like, I'll use Silas Wren as a wicked blocker. It's like, they're like, well, it's your commander, so I'll trade my 6/6. So I was like, sure, I'm going to bring him back. And guess what? This Echo Storm that I'm sitting on is going to copy 5 or 6 times.
Exactly. So, and what Echo Storm does is that it creates a token that's a copy of target artifact. So, yeah, like you said, 2 or 3 commander casts is not at all unreasonable for this partner deck with very low CMC commanders. Akiri costs 2.
Yeah.
Akiri costs 2, Silas Wren costs 3. Like, I see why, like, our, Echo Storm isn't a super desirable card in some, like, in like a, I don't know, what's her face, the big Esper Sphinx there, Sharoon.
Oh, well, if we were even regular Brudiclad, this would be a tall order.
It's a tall order, right? Because like maybe you cast your commander twice. Most likely, you've only cast it once by the point you get this card. So that's not great. But if you can get 3. That's something. Now you're talking.
That's something.
Now we're talking.
Yeah, I really do think that's fun. So whenever you hide your commander in the deck and you've got this like Brudiclad is the spiritual commander, but not really.
Right.
We got to have ways to get them. Well, Brudiclad is an artifact creature, so Treasure Mage is perfect in this.
Yes.
It's a 6 CMC artifact. So that's what Treasure Mage, 2 and a blue, 2/2, get to tutor up any 6 CMC artifact from the deck, put it in your hand. Boom. Easy peasy. If for some reason, like we don't have our Treasure Mage, we also don't have Brudiclad, we've got quite a bit of wheels in this deck. That's but when we have blue and red, wheels are good. Black gets you a little bit more wheelie stuff. It is definitely possible to just dig. Like, we can do some real digging with Jace's Archivist. This is the creature for 1 blue. It's a 2/2, and you can pay blue and tap it to have everyone. So this is sort of like the conditional wheel. I guess a traditional wheel, everyone goes back to 7. But Jace's Archivist, everyone goes back up to the most cards anyone had at the time of the activation. Right. So if you're playing a ton of cards, you'll have less than other people, so you'll profit from this. But there are worlds where you might be giving an opponent a few extra cards.
Jace's Archivist looks like he's like looking at a prospective new sign for a new noodle place.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, that looks good. That catches the eye.
It makes me think of noodles.
Yeah, exactly. I've seen that sign down on Dundas before. Yeah. All right. Jace's Archivist also, I just wanted to point out, is one that dies a lot. People tend to be afraid of a wheel. Even some people will want it. Some people who don't want it will it's a bit of a lightning rod. So you got to watch out for that. But this card, it's because it's very powerful. It's a great card.
Yeah, it's instant speed. People see it coming, but what they won't see necessarily coming is Windfall, 2 and a blue for the same effect. It's a 1-shot, but this is also a spell, so it triggers our spell effects that can give us tokens that way. And also, now that we have black, we get to have Whispering Madness, which goes, it's the Cipher one. It's 2 black-blue. It does the same thing, but then we cipher it onto a creature, and if that creature ever does combat damage, we get to wheel again. We get to cast this again, which does count as a cast a copy. Yeah, so
it does count. Yeah, you do cast the spell. Yep.
So you still get that stuff. So like if there's a creature that's going to be getting in easily, that's great for that too. I'm a fan of that. So yeah, there's other ways we're going to dig to Brudiclad if we can't get them the other way.
Of course, yeah. So we want to be able to cast a lot of spells after
After we've cast
this,
Brudiclad,
right?
after we've wheeled, all sorts of situations.
And after we have our Aetherflux Reservoirs out there, we want to hit them out, right? Even if you only get the 1 or 2, like, it's going to be nice to be able to start casting a few spells. So we always need mana for that. So Blink Moth Urn is going to be a nice option for this artifact-heavy deck. 5 mana for the artifact that says at the beginning of each player's pre-combat main phase, if Blink Moth Urn is untapped, that player adds 1 colorless mana for each artifact they control. This is the #1 card for you always remember and always use it, and your opponents never remember and hardly ever use it. It looks like it looks like it, unless they're another artifact deck, in which case they'll remember. But even then, half the time, it's so, like, it looks like it's going to benefit the table, benefit the entire table instead of just you. Obviously, you're taking more advantage of it just for the artifacts, but it's like most people are just going to forget. If it only gives them 1 or 2, if they got like a soul ring and like a, some kind of boots or something, people always forget about this thing, always. And even if they remember the first time, like after you cast it, they'll forget about it as the game goes on. I guarantee you. I know this because that's what I do every time Butler plays his mirror deck. He's got this card in there, and I never remember to use that colorless mana. So keep that in mind. That's good to know. Storm the Vault is a personal favorite in these types of decks. 2 blue, red for the legendary enchantment. Whenever 1 or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, you create a colorless treasure artifact token that you can add mana for, of course. At the beginning of your end step, if you control 5 or more artifacts, you transform it into Vault of Catlacan, which is a legendary land that adds mana of any color, or you can tap it to add blue to your mana pool for each artifact you control. It becomes a, what is it again?
Tolarian Academy, I think. Or is that the one that is that the one that puts cards on top? Tolarian Winds, I don't know, something Tolarian.
Tolarian something. We're not familiar with the vintage cards.
I don't know $100 cards.
Yeah,
that's not the world I live in.
That is not the world I live in, and it is Tolarian Academy. We're right.
I guess I do know $100 cards.
It turns out we do. We just second guess ourselves pretty hard. But yeah, obviously this card's amazing. It's a huge ramp. You're going to be able to cast lots of spells off of this. Blink Moth Urn together are a real crazy combination. They're going to add so much mana whenever you want. And finally, we have Inspiring Statuary. Another one that I love just putting in. This is like sneakily good in just about any deck, actually. Inspiring Statuary is 3 mana for an artifact that says non-artifact spells you cast have Improvise, which means that you can tap artifacts to pay for the colorless portion of those spells. So this is just simply non-artifact spells. So here's why I like this in any deck, and definitely still like it in this deck. This is a mana rock. This is a 3 mana, add 1 mana rock, without saying it, right? For, again, non-artifacts. Any other artifact you have also now taps for a mana. So obviously, if you just have mana rocks, it's not that great. But if you have equipment, or even just a few pieces of equipment, or even artifact creatures, they can tap for mana too.
Yeah.
So like, it's like, look at your deck, and like sometimes Inspiring Statuary is like a better Worn Power Stone. If you're putting Worn Power Stone in your decks, like, look for the opportunity to add Inspiring Statuary.
Yeah, and like, I'll remind you that a lot of our artifacts are little artifacts that are meant to sacrifice themselves to further our game plan. But now Golden Egg just taps for 1.
Yeah.
While this is out. Renegade map, if we're not ready to crack it, if we're still making land drops, well, that just taps for 1 now anyway. So these cards this card is very well positioned here, for sure.
And this is the thing, it's like, we've talked about this card before in some other episodes. I think this is an old Brea episode where we talked about it, but it's not good in all artifact decks, but it's like somehow you want to put it in because that's where all the artifacts are. But if you have a deck like this where it's a lot of stuff that creates tokens and creates artifacts, it's great in it. And like I said, I even think it's good in just a general deck. Try it out. You'll see what I'm talking about.
Yeah. And I just want to go over a couple other tools that the deck is using. So we also run gear per Ether Grid. It's the 2 and a red enchantment where we get to tap 2 untapped artifacts to have it deal 1 damage to a creature or player. If we've just got a boatload of treasures and other tokens or other artifacts, we can just start picking off creatures, whittling down players, frustrating commanders on the other side of the board. This is great.
Very good.
We have a couple ways of generating massive amounts of mana. So, of course, we got a Comet Storm in here. That is the way we could sometimes just end the game. And I think this is new from Throne of Eldraine. I'm a big fan of Castle Embereth. It's the land that comes into play untapped unless you control a mountain. So it taps for red, but you can also pay 1 red, tap. Creatures you control get +1/+0 until end of turn. When Brudiclad makes all of your artifacts into 2/1 mirrors, now that they're 3/1 mirrors, can often be the difference between like, oh, it almost killed players to fully wiping out the board.
That's true. That's very true. Very cool. Love it. Yeah, this is a fun deck.
Yeah.
Anything that has a goal like this, where it's like, I want to create 50 Aetherflux Reservoirs. So I cast one spell and I can kill someone, you know? Like, that's perfect. I love that kind of lofty goal. Because it's fun along the way to do it, and also like it's fun like playing against those decks because you're like, what are you doing? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna try and stop the part I think is gonna kill me. It's like, nope, that wasn't it.
Dang.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun seeing them go off too, especially if you're like a GP and people don't know your deck.
Yeah.
What about some surprises and discoveries?
Oh, this surprise and discovery goes out to someone from our Discord, special friend of the show, Jamon, coming through, suggested a lot of great suggestions in that. Like, we could have brewed up 2 different decks. As I said, this deck had a few evolutions as we were talking about it. But one that was a great surprise that Jamon brought to my attention was Treasure Map. I always sort of knew this existed from the recent standard, but it was from Ixalan, and it recently just rotated. I always thought this card was very expensive, but the surprise is that this is you can get a well-used copy of this for under $1. Yeah. The low price is 75 cents. It's a 2-mana artifact, 1 and a tap, scry 1. That's fine. And then you put a landmark counter on it, and then as soon as you get your 3rd landmark counter, you transform it and make 3 treasure tokens. This is sort of just great, like a great little mana sink that will eventually pay you back. And when it flips, that card, Treasure Cove, taps to sack a treasure to draw a card. Now we can also draw cards with extra treasures if we don't want to use them to make into tokens of other things. It helps us find the other combo pieces or the other draw spells or whatever. What a fantastic card. I thought it was expensive. It is not.
Yeah, it was played in standard there for a bit, and that's when it climbed a little bit in price. I mean, the last time I looked at it, it was like $6 or something.
Not as much as I wanted to spend on it.
No, exactly, and that's a bit too much. I want to spend on a thing that lets me scry 1 and maybe draw a few cards. Like, it's a nice thing to have, but not worth $6. But at under $1, I'm very happy. You know.
Yeah.
That's
so thank you, Jamon.
Yeah, very good. Okay, what is next here? Oh yeah, we've done the surprises and discoveries. It's time for the budget report.
This is where we take all of the cards and we realize that they're all treasure the whole time.
It's very expensive to have a whole deck of treasure.
Yes, it is.
It's all gold.
This deck, though, is not very expensive. If you go to the affiliate link there, you'll see our deck on TCGplayer, and the market price for this deck is $110. But the low is $61. And
what is this? 2017 Commander's Brew?
Right. The low is $61, but I'll tell you right now, I knew it was kind of pricey, but I've got Dockside Extortionist in this list. That's the most expensive card. It's from the new Commander sets, 1 and a red, Goblin Pirate 1/2. When it enters, make X treasures, where X is the number of artifacts and enchantments your opponents control. This is a great red ramp spell. This is $20.
What? Sean,
right?
You included a $20 card in your deck? Is this the first time ever?
I left it in to just give you the, so you're thinking, oh, $110, $61, that's probably the average for what they're doing these days. No, knock $20 off this list. This is actually a $90 mid or a $40. This is under $50 low if like you wanted to brew this up.
Back in 2017, we here.
Yeah, we here. Maybe trade this. I did not include a Revel in Riches. I didn't want to win that way. Like, that's an easy include for this.
Yeah.
But the second most expensive card, no surprise, is Smothering Tide. This is creeping up to $10. This is a staple in white commander decks, even though this is not a white commander deck. Exactly. It's the enchantment, 3 and a white, just in case you're not familiar. Whenever an opponent draws a card, they have to pay 2, and if they don't, you get a treasure. So we're wheeling a lot as well. So it's like, okay, wheel. Does everyone want to pay the 14 they need to pay, or am I getting 21 treasures right now? It's like, yeah, I think you're getting 21 treasures right now. It's like, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
I'll do it. So of course that's in for close to 10. And I didn't know this. Aetherflux Reservoirs, 750 now.
Wow.
Yeah, or it's pushing $8. So I mean, you kind of got to keep those
cards,
in,
right? These are unique cards. You don't see this type of effect very often in any of these 3 cards. So it it stands to reason that they would be, they're not going to be uber cheap, and that's just the reality we live in with there being so many commander players, so many commander decks. Yeah, I'll say I'm very happy the time I found a Smothering Tithes at the GP
yeah,
in the draft chaff pile. Always go
Amazing.
through the draft chaff at a GP or Magic Fest or whatever.
It's also a great place to get new tokens.
Yes, it is, and like just some like uncommons that you're like, hey, I kind of like this card, but because that's what I normally end up taking out. But then some because like some standard player doesn't care about Smothering Tithe, so he's just like, oh, I don't know, whatever. So
Yeah.
I got one of those. Remember, Sean, you got like a Karn once back
I
when
found
it was
a
like
Karn.
$50 or something. Like that was crazy.
I was like, hey, these are garbage, right? He's like, yes. He's like, this is for sure not lost and found. He's like, nope, you can go through this. I'm like, okay then.
and like that definitely is someone who accidentally left it, but like, I mean, what are you supposed to do? Walk around asking people if they've like left their Karn? Like,
Well, right. No, but like, how does it get into like the employee, the Channel Fireball worker who was at the stand, like collected them and
Yes.
put them in this bin?
yes,
So it's like,
yes, they did.
Yeah.
Yeah. And exactly. So like, what are you supposed to do? Like, walk around asking someone if they forgot their Karn? Like, you can't do that. So I guess karma, it comes, that person lost it. They'll get something back, and you will lose something as well.
Yikes.
You did lose something because you didn't sell that, did you? Or did you?
No, I did not
It
sell
was
it.
like remember, it was like almost $100 at one point.
Is it way less now?
It's like $10 now.
Oh, I lost $90.
What are you
go.
gonna do? It's fine.
It's fine. I'm gonna play with it. It's not worth anything except fun.
There you go. That's a great way to look at it. Okay, perfect. Okay, what about favorite cards? What are we looking at here?
Ooh, do you have a favorite? So you have a great one. I
I
think.
do. This one is legit one of my favorite cards in these decks every time. It's Marionette Master, 4 black for the 1/3 Human Artificer with Fabricate 3. And just to remind you what Fabricate is, because I almost forgot what it was also. When it enters the battlefield, you put 3 1/1 counters on it or create 3 1/1 servo creatures. In this deck, it's probably going to be the servos, but also, actually, not true. In this deck, if you don't have anything, sometimes the servos are fine to do. But generally, if you got a bunch of artifacts already, it's actually better to do the 3 +1/+1 counters, because whenever an artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, target opponent loses life equal to Marionette Master's power. So you kind of have to balance it out. Most of the time, like I said, if you got a bunch of artifacts, you're cool to just make this a 4/7 or whatever it is. No, a 4/6. My bad.
4/6.
A 4/6, and then every time an artifact dies, a target opponent loses life equal to the power. So they're going to lose 4 for every artifact that goes away. That multiplies super fast.
Well,
That's
and
crazy.
I'll remind you, we've got a cranial plating in the deck. So if you throw a cranial plating on and Marionette Master's power is like in the teens, every time you sack an artifact, a treasure, for example, that power does go down by 1, but that kind of doesn't matter at that point.
It's like a reverse Aetherflux Reservoir or something. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
instead of something that's getting progressively larger and bigger, it's getting smaller, but still has a great effect.
Oh, we didn't talk about this too. Like, sometimes you got to spend your copy spells. It's also a world where you might make 3 or 4 copies of cranial plating with those other copy spells and just be like, oh, sure, whoever gets through, I'm going to turn them into a 30 power creature.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Wild. What about you? What's your favorite card?
My favorite is Tectonic Reformation. It came from Modern Horizons, and it's dirt cheap right now. It's a rare enchantment, 1 and a red. Each land card in your hand has cycling for a red, and it has cycling of 2 for itself. This is a gumball right now. When it came out, I remember looking at it, it's like, oh, it's a couple bucks, but I really love them. It's like, this is dirt cheap right now. I love it in any deck like this. I'm wheeling a bunch, so I often have a handful of lands. So being able to cycle them for red is amazing. That's a way to use treasures if I want to, if I am desperate to find things. And the thing cycles by itself if I don't need him. I love this card.
This is a very Shantabaris card.
Yeah.
you love cycling. You love the cycling lands, which I only recently have come around on, specifically in like 2-color decks. But I'm with you. I think this card's great. I think you put this in a lot of red decks.
Yeah, in a mono red deck, it gets tough because you usually want to play out every land you get to just keep your advancing your mana. Red has a tough time ramping sometimes, but
You know what
if
red also has a hard time doing? Drawing cards.
that's true too. That's
Like
true
I think
too.
this does go in a mono red deck for the most part.
You got to trade something though. You got to trade a land though. Like how you're not up on cards. Like you're down a card to get
but
a
like
card.
once you're in like the 8 to 10 mana range, when you've got some artifacts out there and you've got some lands out there, like a lot of times you're just looking for gas and you draw that mountain, you're gonna be like, crud.
Yeah.
No way, man. Now you just cycle it.
Yeah. This is no cruds allowed.
No cruds allowed. We have one crud. We're allowed one crud, but not.
Yeah. It says no cruds.
No cruds allowed. Very important difference there.
Yeah.
Love it. I love that. This is a surprising discovery for me, as you will find with most Modern Horizon cards, because I was very much away when that set came out, and every time someone points out a new good commander card for it, I'm like, whoa, I never seen this card before, and I literally have never seen this card before.
Yeah.
And I like it a lot. It's great.
It's great. I love it. Well, that's the deck, everybody. It was fun to put together. Thank you to everyone in the Discord for helping me brew this thing. So many good ideas. We could have taken this 2 or 3 directions. There might be another direction here that's different enough that there could be 2 decks here. I don't know.
I think there definitely can be. I think looking back at our old Brea Hellkite Tyrant achievement unlock. Speaking of achievement unlock decks, that's what it was, wasn't it?
Right.
That was a similar, like, in build, but not in like aim, right? Like you're aiming to do something different in that deck. And this deck, we have some similar cards, but obviously we're aiming to do something pretty different. That's very cool. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
I love it. Go check that one out. You might like that one too. Great. Well, that does it for this week. Everyone go check out TCGplayer if you're in the States, Wizards Tower if you're in Canada, respectively. Those are going to be the best for you in whatever country you're listening from. We'll see everyone later. Remember to check out Battle of the Brews on YouTube. Goodbye.
Bye. Thanks for watching. If you love what we're doing, consider supporting the show by going to patreon.com/commandersbrew.
And if you want to get any of the cards from our deck list, go to our TCGplayer affiliate link below.
That helps us out too. And for a free way to help us out, consider sharing the show with some friends. Like and subscribe, add a comment or two.
See you later.
Bye.